Hi, I'm asked so often about the problem of staying awake during meditation, especially when people are first learning how to meditate, that I thought I'd put this short video together just to give you some tips. So, the first thing to think about really is the time of day. So, what time of day are you generally trying to meditate? So it could be that you don't have much choice in this. You might have to get up really early and dash off to work, and then by the end of the day, you're really tired. And obviously, if you're really tired and the first time you've allowed yourself to slow down or to relax during the day is when you sit to do your meditation, you are going to fall asleep. But one of the things that we know that happens over time with meditation is that if you keep persevering, then your meditation actually helps you to sleep better. And when you sleep better at night, then you get, it's not just the length of time that you need to think about, it's the quality of the sleep and actually getting through all the different sleep cycles that you need to go through during your sleep period at night. So meditation helps us to get those sleep cycles to be working better for us and to get that good quality of sleep that we need. So after a few months of practicing meditation, most people find that their sleep is improving to the point where they're actually less tired during the day. But of course, if we're doing very busy days, then we are going to get tired. So it might be that you need to factor into your meditation time maybe 5 or 10 minutes for a nap first, and then wake up and do your meditation. So these are kind of things to experiment with and just find out what works for you. The most important thing is to keep persevering. So if you do have a choice over the time of day, then the time that works best for most people is actually first thing in the morning. So if it's at all possible, one thing you could do is set your alarm for, say, 10 or 15 minutes earlier in the morning and give yourself that time for meditation. And there are several reasons why that's really beneficial. So, obviously, one reason is that for most people, once they've been awake for, say, 5 or 10 minutes, their brain is actually more alert and ready to learn at that time of day, especially if we train it. And I'm going to come on to that in a moment. So, first thing in the morning, you're less likely to fall straight back asleep. You might feel a bit sleepy, but you can wake up during the meditation, especially if you do a little bit of stretching beforehand, and that's even better anyway. So if you do a few stretches, then come into your chosen posture and start your meditation, then not only are you more awake, which is better for learning, it's better for rewiring your brain, but also you're teaching your brain that this activity must be important if it's one of the first things you do every day. So after a while, what happens then is that your brain is much more accepting of your meditation, and it will actually help you to create the right environment and the right brain state to be in to be able to do your meditation effectively. Because don't forget, our brains are there to be programmed. So if we're programming the brain to believe that this activity is important, it will put more effort and energy into that. And we see that with something called bold imaging, which is a type of MRI scan that measures the movement of oxygen in the blood. So, where the blood is flowing to in the brain areas, that's where the oxygen is going to. And where the oxygen goes, that's where the energy goes to feed the brain. So, if we can do it first thing in the morning, we're usually more alert. We can learn more. We can rewire the brain more easily. And the brain starts to accept this as being an important activity. So, it diverts more energy and more focus and concentration to the parts of the brain that we need to meditate effectively. So the next thing to think about then is posture. So ideally, if you're struggling to stay awake, you don't want to be doing too many meditations lying down unless you're doing them with the intention to help you go to sleep. That's a different reason for meditating. But if you're meditating because you're wanting to learn mindfulness or you're wanting to rewire your brain in some way, then what you want to do is choose a posture where you can't fall asleep too easily. So we want to be very upright in our chair. If we can, we want the back to be self-supporting. We don't want to be slumping in the chair like this because then we'll just nod off. If we can be upright, so that we're in a relaxed and comfortable posture, but not so comfortable that it's easy to nod off. And we want to have the head in a posture where if we do nod off, it's going to sort of fall like this. And that will wake us up straight away. So if the head starts to loll, then you know you've nodded off. And you won't have missed much of the meditation because your movement, the way that the head moves in that way, will alert you to the fact that you've nodded off. If you do want to lie down, then one trick that you can try is to lie flat on your back with your knees bent, like in a triangle shape. So your feet are flat on the bed or whatever it is you're lying on, your knees are bent. And then if you start to nod off, what will happen is your knees will go to one side or the other. And again, that alerts us that we're nodding off. So that's another way of making sure that we don't completely fall asleep and that we wake up quite quickly. And we can treat nodding off in the same way that we treat mind wandering. It's something that's going to happen sometimes. And the idea is to notice as quickly as possible and just come back to the meditation. And if we treat it that way, then we won't get too stressed and upset about it. Another thing to really help us to stay awake is to make sure that your breathing is as unobstructed as possible. And that's because we want to be getting lots of nice oxygen into the body to keep the brain alert and awake. So if we're lying down, remember the lungs can only breathe forward then. If we're sitting up, we can breathe into the back of the body as well. So we're getting more oxygen into the body. So that's kind of time of day and posture. The third thing to consider is, are you doing the right practice for how you're feeling? So if you're absolutely exhausted and you decide to lie down and do a 45-minute body scan, you are going to fall asleep. One of the ways we can use a body scan is to actually help us to relax the body to fall asleep, if that's one of our intentions. So if you're getting frustrated because you keep nodding off, then choose a posture that supports the practice you want to do and choose a practice that supports the way you're feeling. So, for example, you might want to choose a practice that involves standing or some sort of movement. You might want to choose a practice where the instructions, if you're listening to a guided one, change quite frequently. There aren't long periods of silence. Where the voice of the person leading and guiding that meditation might be giving you instructions. So you're constantly being brought back to the present moment in a sort of very directed way, rather than being given lots of free choice and lots of opportunity to drift off. You might want to choose to have your eyes open. So if you're very sleepy, it might help to choose an object meditation, for example. You can also, one of the things you can do is also think about objects that you can hold, objects that you can move around. So there are lots and lots of different practices. And this is where actually having a chat with me or another meditation teacher can be really quite helpful. So if you're having some specific problems with staying awake, then we can look at sort of more specific practices, but they're just some general guidance. Another thing to think about in a little bit more detail, if you want to, which I have just mentioned, is this idea of practice and brain training. So we have brain waves. So the brain waves are literally waves of electricity that your brain generates every time it performs a function or has a thought. So anytime neurons fire, they will be sending electrical impulses through your brain. And we have lots of different brain waves going on all the time, but we generally fall into what's called brainwave patterns. And that's where one frequency of brain waves is more dominant. So at the moment, if you're awake and alert and conscious, then your brain will be in beta state. And so that means that your beta brain waves are the dominant wave pattern at the moment. And that's what most of us are in most of the time. Then we have alpha brainwave state, and that's the state that takes over when we're awake but relaxed and possibly drowsy. So we could be listening to nice, relaxing music. We might be just kind of chilling on the beach or something. We might be sort of nodding off. And that's the state that we go into at the beginning of meditation. So the alpha brainwave does make us feel a little bit drowsy. And so when we're first starting to learn to meditate, one of the things that can happen is that your brain associates this drowsiness with you wanting to go to sleep. Because remember, the brain will always do what it thinks we want it to do. So if we get it into a pattern of only ever sitting and relaxing when we're absolutely exhausted and we're falling asleep, then the brain will go into that brainwave pattern that will support us in going to sleep. In fact, one of the brain's main sort of functions, if you like, is to make sure that we get plenty of sleep. So if we're skipping sleep, it will take every opportunity to try and send us to sleep at some other time, because the brain knows how important sleep is to its own survival. So then we have delta waves, and that's when we go into deep, dreamless sleep. We don't generally go into that brainwave pattern in meditation unless we have gone completely to sleep. Then we have theta brainwaves, and these are the ones that we access in deep meditation. So when you've been practicing for at least a year and the insular part of the brain has taken over, that's when you're more likely to go into theta state. And we can also access this state sometimes in light sleep or dreaming sleep, REM state sleep. But the most sort of frequent way of accessing theta brainwave state is in deep meditation. So the more you practice, the more you're going to be able to access this brainwave state. And this is really nice for the brain. It helps the brain just sort of have a rest and do some of the things that it needs to do that it can't do when it's in beta state. Then we have gamma. So gamma waves are really fast brain waves that help with focus and concentration. And some people struggle to produce gamma waves. So then they have brain fog and problems concentrating. So gamma waves are produced more when we meditate more. So it sort of sounds a bit odd because you'd think that meditation would slow everything down, and it does in a lot of ways. But once we've gone into that deep meditation state, when we've been able to maintain that deep meditation, that theta state for a while, we start to produce gamma waves. And gamma waves are really, really helpful for helping the brain work as efficiently as it can, but also to be focused and able to concentrate as much as possible. So the more we meditate, the easier it is to go into gamma state. So knowing a little bit about brainwaves hopefully can help you understand why you might feel sleepy during some meditations, and also that this is completely normal. And your brain is just adapting in the same way that your lungs adapt to learn different breathing techniques when we learn meditation. So they become more efficient, and hopefully we're encouraging them to get into better habits. We're now also teaching the brain to get into better habits with producing the brain waves that we need when we need them, and to be more alert and focused when we want to be alert and focused, but also relaxed and sleepy when we want to be relaxed and sleepy. What we tend to do is we just kind of push ourselves to do all the time, to be really, really busy. And then we get to the point where everything's exhausted, we've run out of all of our energy in every cell of the body, including the brain, and we just kind of fall into this collapsed, exhausted sleep, which isn't actually the best way for us to sleep. Sleep through exhaustion actually doesn't let us go into the sleep cycles that we really need. So meditation helps us sort out some of those problems. So if you're learning to meditate and you're nodding off frequently, then think about the time of day that you're meditating. Is there something you can do to give yourself the best opportunity to stay awake? Think about your posture. Is the posture you're choosing supporting you in staying awake, or is it encouraging you to get too comfortable and sleepy and nod off? Think about the type of meditation that you're doing. Is it one that's going to support you as you are in this moment? Because we all have lovely ideas about the meditation we'd like to do, but is that the meditation that's actually going to work for you right now? Think about doing some meditations with your eyes open. Think about maybe standing or walking meditations. These all count. It's all working in the direction that we want to be going in. And another thing that you can think of that some people find really helpful is to hold something whilst you're meditating. So some people use meditation beads, for example. Other people might choose to hold some stones or crystals, just kind of small, tiny pebble type size things. And if you're moving those around in your hands or you have an object, some people like to hold a little wooden Buddha or maybe a cross or something. Just holding something. There are also holding stones you can get, thumb stones. You can choose crystals that are called thumb stones as well. And it has a little hollow that you can just kind of keep rubbing with your thumb whilst you're meditating. So there are lots and lots of different tricks and things to try to keep you awake while you're learning to meditate. But of course, the main thing is practice and perseverance. Just keep going, and you'll start to find that things fall into place of their own accord. So I hope that's been helpful for you.